Thanks, everyone. My name is Paul Bockelman with Amazon Web Services. I'm honored to have been asked to join the TidalScale team and Daniel from Dell to talk about this this launch event for TidalGuard. Really excited about that. So let's go to the next slide, Gary. When I first met Gary and team, this statistic was put forth, and as you guys saw when he kicked off his presentation, it too was the first slide that we saw where, in 10 years from 2010 to 2020, we've seen a 50x growth in data only with a 5x CPU performance growth. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, okay, so that's pretty substantial, but that's 2010 through 2022, and a lot of stuff happens in the digital transformation world. Things are happening in exponentials, and it's non-linear. So let's go to the next slide. Went and did some digging, and what we're looking at is, according to IDC, we're looking at by 2025, there's expected to be 41 billion IoT devices, connected IoT devices, generating those and other devices generating about 79 zettabytes of data per year. That's a lot of data. I don't know about you guys, but that's a lot of data. And so, I'm a big proponent of, okay, that's great. We have all the data in the world, but where's the information? So in order to take a lot of data and make information out of it, you need a lot of compute, a lot of processing powers, and a lot of fairly complex systems at times to do things that you want to do with those. So let's go to the next slide, Gary. So we had a customer situation actually in a couple different segments where we were looking, the customer, the requirement, it was for, a cloud-based solution that we needed to vertically scale on single hosts as opposed to doing the traditional multi-node clustering. And, we needed high IO and low latency storage from the storage perspective. And then it needed to be high memory and CPU dense. So, when we looked at this, we're like, okay, we feel pretty confident that we can meet many of these needs. And as we started to look through what AWS was delivering, generally available, we were able to tick a lot of the boxes. However, I felt that there was just something a little bit more that we needed to do. And so, I was like thinking, we need to figure out a way to make sure that these things are always on, it's highly available. And for these customers in particular, especially in healthcare and in financial services, when you look at the growth of the data, that number that I just showed the previous slide, these are some of the industries that are going to be driving that growth. And so, what is required for them today from a compute perspective is not what they're going to need in a year, 3 years from now. And so, we need to be able to stay, to be able to keep pace with that growth. So let's go ahead, next slide, please. So from an AWS perspective, we looked at it and said, well, we have a fairly robust, fleet of EC2 instances. For those who aren't familiar with AWS, EC2 is our elastic compute. And that is, think of those as the virtual computing platforms. We actually have since grown that and expanded what that infrastructure does, and we've included what are now called bare metal instances. So we have there's over 400 instance types in our portfolio, and there's 25 bare metal instances. And they're pretty, they range in size from really, really small for, really basic workloads up to, very memory dense, up to 24 terabytes of RAM in a bare metal instance. And we even have instances that do 400 gigabits of networking. Now, that is pretty cool, but that doesn't work for everyone. So the team, my team, we started working on it. TidalScale, we think might be the solution that's going to help us to solve for many of the requirements that I just spoke of. From a storage perspective, that was the first one we took off. We went after. From a storage perspective, we were able to pull together a storage solution that breaks the 1 million IOPS barrier for cloud storage. And so that was pretty significant. We're like, okay, this is really cool. We can really push a lot of data, but we're going to start getting bottlenecked. The bottleneck's going to move. We need to do a similar type big expansion and capabilities on the compute. And so we met up with TidalScale. And Gary, let's go to the next slide, please. It just seemed like it was a natural fit to work with TidalScale to do exactly right here. This is my mission statement: to create a horizontally deployed, vertically scalable compute and storage platform. But the key here is I wanted to use standard AWS primitives. So things that are already deployed, things that are already on, as I affectionately say inside the company, I want to sell what's on the truck, right? So let's use what's already out there. Let's not sell futures. And so let's go to the next slide, please. There we go. So as we started working through this problem, I pulled together some solution tenants, and I really think what was interesting is that I pulled these solution tenants together before we really started working with TidalScale. And then when we met with Gary and team, it became pretty obvious that they hit the mark on all of these. And so, the first one I think is super important, scaling up by scaling out. Now, for those folks that are familiar with cloud computing, the common design pattern there is, a number of smaller compute nodes that are horizontally scaled to give you high durability, failover, and all of the above. But that doesn't work necessarily in the type of workloads that we're talking about. So what I'm talking about here on this scaling up by scaling out is just what TidalScale is doing. Let's combine a set of collection of nodes that really kind of meet the need of what the workload. And as that workload continues to grow, which we're finding is happening quite frequently, we want to be able to scale it up without necessarily having to do teardowns or maybe even migrations, large migrations. So the second one is use what's already on the truck. So again, these are all, I wanted to be able to use services that are all generally available. So anybody that's on this call, if you have an AWS account, you could launch services using, the things that we're proposing are all available to every customer. So it's not, you don't have to be a special customer to get access to these things. And then, the last one I think was super important is tailoring your shirt size. Let the customers tailor the shirt size. So in cloud computing, there's, we work as an industry really with like t-shirt sizing. Our compute teams or service teams work really hard to meet with customers to find out what are the most common size combinations of CPU to the particular chipsets. What are the best ratios of CPU to memory? Add in network performance, add in storage performance. All of those things are constantly being evaluated. Our team is doing a really, they do an excellent job at continuing to work with customers and delivering demand. But those t-shirt sizes don't always work for customers. And so in the case that we're trying to solve for, that was exactly the case. We had, either had instances that provided way more resources than we needed, or we had, if we were to back it off, we would get an instance that perhaps had less resources than we desired, but it ticked the box, say, perhaps in like network performance and things like that. So let's go to the next slide. So with working with TidalScale, it became very obvious to us that the solution that they bring to market is one that I think is in its infancy and is going to go pretty far, pretty fast. Andy Jassy was our CEO of AWS and now the CEO of Amazon. He used to always make it clear to both our customers and to our teams internally that there's no compression algorithm for experience. And so, that became very clear when myself and my team, we met with Gary and the TidalScale team, that the amount of experience that's at the table developing and building and launching this product is incredible. And I knew right then that that this was a good match and something that I think we're going to be able to do really good things for, or actually really great things for customers in the future.